All right, all right. Hold on, let me get myself together, y'all. Let me get myself together. Good evening, good evening. It's yours truly, Dr. Pierre. Welcome to another episode of Real Physician Reacts. This is our live Thursday night get together video conversation where we just really kind of talk about social media craziness that kind of comes across or any just health topic that's really off the top of my mind that a lot of people really want to hear the physician perspective on things. And this week's episode, I purposely avoided any crazy, because there's plenty of them. I purposely avoided any crazy, things that have happened within the past week or so, because I really wanted to really kind of talk, especially in a live related format, a question that really I've probably been getting for about 6 months, right? A common question I've been getting for about 6 months. And it seems, right? And again, and we always preface this, especially on this show, that a lot of times when I'm talking, I'm really talking in the perspective of a person who resides in the United States. And for those who may not know, when you reside in the United States, you kind of act like the rest of the world operates like how you operate, even though that's far from it. So I'm talking like a person here in the United States when I ask this general question: is the pandemic over? Because when you look at it, again, we are 2+ years, since the start of things, right? 2+ years since our first diagnosis. It's 2+ years since really, the world stopped. And we get to this point now where we've gone through wave after wave after wave. If I count, we're probably at like wave 4 of, swelling of cases. But it is so much different now than what it was, 2 years ago, right? So much different now, and so many things. And reason why, again, I'm in the state of Florida. Full context, I'm in the state of Florida. We've been acting like this pandemic has been over for probably like a year and a half, right? So we haven't been acting like the general, state of the United States have been acting, right? Because that's just what we do. So when I look at the state of Florida, just kind of look around, business is open. You know what? I'm seeing less and less masks when I go to the store now. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing is more and more people, especially in power, want us to act like, all right, we just got to keep this moving. You're seeing across the country, you're seeing mask mandates loosen. We talked a couple weeks ago about the CDC even changing, which we know what they do. They change their recommendations, their guidance levels on what is a hot area versus what is not a hot area. And let me take that. I don't want to say they changed it, right? They updated the definition to fit a little better standard, whatever, right? So they've done that. So we're here now we're about to cross 1 million deaths probably within the next, definitely by the end of the year, right? Definitely by the end of the year, we'll have 1 million deaths here in the United States from COVID-19. And it's a number that if we could have looked back and thought, man, like, are we really going to lose 1 million people to this disease? And are we going to be okay with that? No one would have said, yeah, we're fine with that. No one would have said fine with that. But when the world shut down and like real life really started being affected, like all people could talk about was like, hey, when is this over? And I'm talking not only just regular, community folks, but I'm talking about people in healthcare field, people outside of the healthcare field, people in government, business owners, people just want it to be over with. And a question I always keep getting is, man, when is this thing going to be finished, right? Like, when am I not going to have to worry about, because that's one of the things, when am I not going to have to worry about wearing a mask? When is it going to be free for me to kind of frolic around the country and more importantly the world and without any concern? And I always tell people, again, it's a question that we are not going to know until we're in it. It's not a question that I can pinpoint and say, oh, in 3 months, like, we'll be good. All I can say is in 3 months and 6 months, I'm hoping that we're good. I'm hoping that we look around and we don't have another significant variant. We don't have another significant outbreak. That's all we can say. That's all we can hope for. But unfortunately, while we're kind of waiting for that time frame, you know what? People want to get it moving. People want to get this show on the road. And the end of this year, we're going to actually start crossing some benchmarks that you might have remembered, you might have heard, especially in the beginning of this pandemic, this 70% benchmark, which is something that we hoot and especially in the medical community, we hoot and hollered about trying to get as soon as possible. Like, hey guys, if we could just get 70% protected, right? Especially once they started having vaccines, if they were approved and we knew they were safe. We're like, man, if we could just get 70%, 70%. And those who are on the other side, right? And I will call them anti-vaxxers. Those who are on the other side, scoffed at the idea of getting 70%. They scoffed at the idea that we would need 70% and figured like, no, we could just open up these things right now. And it's so hilarious when I see now that we're getting closer and closer to the 70% mark, that you start seeing all of the same people, right? The same people who are clearly against the vaccine and any preventative measures like masking. So clearly against all of that, all of a sudden are saying like, hey guys, look, I told you that we didn't need vaccines, right? I told you we didn't need a social distance. Look how they're opening things up. And I think especially when it comes to context, that's why I kind of started with the fact that everything's kind of opening up, because for a lot of people, right, they want you to believe that the reason why a lot of these things are opening up because we're just we're tired of it, we just want to move on. But the reason why it's happening is that we're starting to actually hit the benchmarks that we've been clamoring for 2+ years. Now, the sad thing is that it took 2+ years for us to get here. We were screaming again, year one, like, hey, like if we can just get everybody like boxed up and vaccinated and social distance, wearing masks, we could beat this thing quickly. But no, we are going to have, and let me take I'll take a quick look so I don't want to tell you any false numbers, right? We're going to have 1 million deaths pretty soon, right? We're going to, in fact, let me share my screen. Give me a second, let this thing load up for us. Share screen. Just so y'all can see, right now we have a total of 79.4 million cases, right? And let me just make that a little bigger for y'all to see. 79.4 million cases with 964,000 deaths. As you can see, the top 5 states leading the charge: California, Texas, Florida, and New York, right? So when we talk about, let me just stop my screen for a second. So when we talk about this aspect of waiting for us to get on, right, with our life, right? We want to get on with our life. We want to get things back to normal, and having to deal with all of the hurdles we had to deal with, right? Remember, I've talked about this before. The previous administration, right, when the COVID, dropped in its lap, dropped the ball so badly that we were running behind the 8 ball. It's the reason why, again, we're going to hit 1 million deaths, like again under 3 years, right? Which again, and I definitely got to keep stressing the fact that we're about to hit 1 million deaths, because if you just thought about like how crazy that is, that in a 3-year span, 1 million people are going to die from this disease, a disease that if we were more diligent in the beginning, if we were social distancing, if we were masking up, if we were getting vaccinated like we should have at that time, we're not talking about a number that's significant. But I think it's so easy, right? Especially when you become fatigued with what the pandemic has done. This pandemic has made it so that when you think about social gatherings, you kind of cringe, right? This pandemic has made it so that businesses that used to be thriving are no longer thriving or are gone, right? Because they had to close their doors. This pandemic has made it so that employees started saying, like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna work from home. And you know what? I like working from home so bad that it's to the point where, like, now those businesses are trying to call employees back and they're looking for a different job. It's like, hold on, man, I'm doing good working from the house. Like, why do I want to go back to a building around people I don't really want to be around with in the first place? Like, I'm so the paradigm has shifted so much now because of this pandemic that's why you see this rush to try to get back to some semblance of what people will call normal, right? Because there's a lot of people who are going to be significantly affected, right? That are not going to be able to recover, right? And I'm talking about people, I'm talking about businesses. Like, there's so many different changes that people are just going to have to adjust to. And I was talking to a colleague of mine who, a physician, who is a business owner, and talks about it from a more business perspective, right? Because they got to hire employees, they got to fire employees, and they say employees are difficult to come by. But what I think a lot of it is saying that, like, no, I think people are recognizing what their worth actually is, and they're not gonna go back for pennies anymore, right? Like, they recognize that, like, I am just as good not being in your facility than I am when I'm at my house, right? Like, the efficiency levels are through the roof. And again, I talk about it. Like, sometimes we work with people we don't want to be around, right? So now that I have an option to not be around those people, like, I'm pretty good, right? Like, I'm gonna take advantage of that. So it's just so many different changes that we're gonna have to get ready for, right, as we come out. Because again, we're still in the pandemic. And again, I'm talking strictly from a United States perspective, because when we talk about our vaccination rates, when we talk about our treatment options, when we talk about just the access that we have here in this country, we are so blessed that we don't realize that there are other countries that would like probably take us out, right, just to get our resources. So when we talk about this pandemic, which is a worldwide phenomena due to this coronavirus 19, like, yes, we might be doing good, right? We might be hitting that 70% that we're looking for, almost 2.5+ years. But that don't mean other countries, right, are doing just as fine. And we talk about that analogy, like the weakest link, right, in the chain. Like, if the other countries are still falling behind, right? If the other countries don't have access to the resources, right? If other countries don't have access to treatment options and vaccinations and masks, if they don't have that option, right? Like, what it is that, yes, like, we may be okay, but once something happens over here, because again, mentally we think we're okay, we go to travel to those places and then just bring back, and then it kind of starts all over again. So as we go at the end of this hill for this last wave due to the Omicron variant, majority of people, right, especially in the healthcare field, public health field, like, they're just looking at it to say, like, okay, what is going to be the next one, right? Because for a lot of people, when you talk to them, especially with this Omicron variant, a lot more people got affected by this virus, right? I did a podcast episode about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right, where I talked about almost everyone in my family got affected, right? Fortunately, somehow, some way, I didn't get affected. My wife blames me, but that's a whole nother discussion. So the fact that we had a variant that was so much more contagious, but fortunately for us, you're knocking on wood, fortunately for us, wasn't as severe as what the previous, big dog in the block was the Delta variant at the time, right? All we could do is breathe a sigh of relief. But the problem is, and I kind of mentioned it when I talked about the Omicron variant, is that the more people who get it, even if they, and the problem is that we have to stop looking as if death is the only marker that we should be worried about. Like, we're going to, especially because we're about 2+ years out, you're gonna start having much more detailed conversation. Right now, a lot of it is really academic in nature, but we're gonna start having some real life conversations of the effects of dealing with COVID, like after, right? You survived it, right? Like, yes, I survived COVID, man. I still can't taste, right? Or my smelling's still bad, right? Or what, my endurance still ain't there yet, right? 1.5, 2+ years later, like that discussion is going to be much more prominent over the next few years. Like, despite what these anti-vaxxers will tell you, we're not going to be talking about side effects of the vaccines and we're not going to do that. That's not happening, right? I know they want it to happen. Trust me, I see the social media posts. I'm on TikTok. Make sure you follow me on TikTok. Same username, Dr. Pierre. But like, I like the amount of mental gymnastics that anti-vaxxers will do, right? To try to let you know that, like, oh my God, you should guys I like, someone posted on my TikTok that like 30% of the people are gonna die from getting vaccinated. And when I tell you that number equals to about 1.4 billion people dying from a vaccine, right? When you have people who mentally think like that there's some vaccine out there that's going to take out 1.1 billion people across the world, those are people you really can't rationalize with, right? So we're not talking to them, right? All we can do is talk to the sane people, the people who have some common sense about them, because when we're thinking about like the next step, right? Like when this thing is over, because again, and I'm not pessimistic and fully, right? I'm not here to tell you that we will never get over it, right? Eventually, we will have less severe variants, right? Eventually, we'll have less contagious variants, right? And I want to make sure I almost combine the two, because what I'm seeing a lot of my colleagues kind of inferring that because this most recent variant wasn't as severe as the last one, we must be going in the right direction. But no, like that, first of all, that makes no sense, because just because it's less severe, if it's like doubly contagious, right? Like, we're not going in the right direction. So we have to get a variant that is less contagious. We have to get a variant that is less severe. Obviously, we have to continue to get vaccinated, get boosted, all the same way like we do with the flu, because eventually COVID-19 will be like the flu. It'll be just kind of this seasonal bug that may pop up every summer. And did you get your flu shot? Did you get your COVID shot? Like, again, I'm I'm COVID shot up, I'm boosted, I got my flu shot. Like, I'm obviously, I'm in the trenches, right? Like, I deal with the sickest of the sickest people, like, because that's my job. So I want to make sure I'm protected, not only for myself but for my family. So when you're thinking like, all right, like, what can I do, like, to help speed this up, right? What can I do to get to the point where, like, it really is over, right? And like, the thought of restrictions and mask requirements and everything else just is almost like a thing of the past. Like, that's what we're going to have to get to. And does it happen this year? Maybe. It's possible, right? It's possible we get to the point where, like, you're comfortable enough to say, like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna go out to this concert, I'm gonna go out to that wedding, I'm gonna go out to all these different places here and be comfortable not needing a mask, because I'm not worried that someone may have like significant variant of this COVID disease, and then I'm gonna bring it to myself, and maybe I don't get sick, but then I give it to the rest of my family. Like, that's really not an issue that we're gonna have to be concerned about moving forward, right? Like, that's the issue that we're hoping that we get to. Like, I want us to get to there. Does it happen this year? All I can do is cross my fingers. But the way I'm, again, like I said, and I talk about it, especially from a United States perspective, man, it's just kind of crazy to think, man. And I was just on a recent, I was just a recent guest on a good friend of mine, your podcast mentor show. Link is in the description or wherever you're watching this at. And in fact, what I'll do is I will post the link in the comments, and I'll throw it on my screen so y'all can check that out. Your podcast. Or- So that's the link if you want to catch that episode. So just on his show, right, and there were so many different thoughts, right, because it was the last time I had been to a podcasting related conference. It was the first time we met, and I was like as I'm like going through the discussion, and we were talking about COVID-19 and talking about what do we do and how did we get here and how did we get past it. Like it just reminded me that of a time where I felt so comfortable being able to go to a conference, talk to everybody, and I didn't need a mask. There wasn't any concern that I was going to get. Like it was just a different time frame. So when I think about it now, because we were talking about future podcasting conferences, like my mind was like, okay, yeah, I can go to those conferences, but man, I'm definitely not gonna, I'm definitely still gonna mask up, right? Because that's just what I am, and that's what I do, right? Like even though I'm boosted, even though I'm all these things there, like I'm definitely gonna still do the things, right, to protect myself, right? Which again, it's just a different mindset that you have to put myself in. But again, definitely check that out because again, we talked about, my YouTube and using social media to kind of do what we're doing this evening, man. But no, it was just a crazy, crazy. Thought that they've been running through my mind, right? Like, is this pandemic really over? And again, if you are again a member of the citizen of the United States, right, and all you kind of paid attention to was issues and things that happen here in this country, like that answer, right? You might not get. Oh, nah, definitely not. I don't think you get that. I think if you're in a different country, you're like, nah, like what you mean? Like, no, clearly it's not over, right? But like, I think because we here in the United States, because we have an embarrassment of riches and we have a lot of the spoils, right? Like, I think it does lead us, right? Let me hide this real quick. It does lead us to kind of take for granted like the benefits we have, right? So again, I'm not here, right? I'm not again. I want to preface it, right? Because I know a lot of people they always hit me up and they're like, "Oh man, you just want this pandemic to last forever so you can get paid forever, right?" Because they think that somehow I get paid extra because it's a pandemic, whatever. I'm not saying I don't want this pandemic to end. I just don't think it's like right now. Like despite, our governor, screaming on telling people that this is theater, despite, state of New York and New York City kind of rescinding masks and mandates, like despite all of that, right? Despite big business ready to say like, hey, we got to keep this money going, right? Like open everything up, take these restrictions off. Like despite all of that, I still want us to be weary, right? Because I don't want to be doing a video like this in the next 3 to 4 months telling you about this specific variant and how bad it is. Like, I don't want to do that, but unfortunately, y'all, I think I am. Right? Again, like, please hold me to these words. Right? If in 3 to 4 months, like we're still chilling and we haven't had an outbreak, like please drop it in the comments. Be like, hey man, I remember when you said that in 3 to 4 months we'd be having it. I don't see nothing. Like, I want to be wrong. Like, I want to be wrong that for the rest of the year, we never have to deal with another outbreak. I want to be so wrong. I just don't think I am because experience has not shown me that we're there. It just is what it is, y'all. So again, I am yours truly, guys. Dr. Pierre. Again, thank you for joining. Thank you for catching any replay, the replay of this episode. Again, make sure, especially for my YouTube watchers or wherever you watch me at, make sure you go to my YouTube page, subscribe to our YouTube page, because you can catch either Medicine Mondays or this series, Real Physician Racks. I'm here live, just kind of talking, kicking the breeze, man. So y'all be blessed, right? And I'm gonna see you guys next week. Bye.